So, here we are, school back, kids back, but there's an issue that I don't think anyone saw coming because, well, you assume these things get done. It happens every year. That's the fact that there are now apparently hundreds, not a couple, hundreds of students in the Montreal area, various school boards, stuck at home, still waiting for Quebec to approve their eligibility for English schools, which means until you get that, you can't actually go to school. The paperwork has to get done. So we thought we'd try to find out more. I hate to sort of even kind of raise the specter of this being political in any way, shape, or form, but why would it be happening this year when it hasn't happened before? Joe ORTONA, of course, is English Montreal School Board president, and he's on the line right now. Joe, help me out here. Am I wrong to suggest something's going on here because this doesn't seem normal?
You're not wrong. First of all, good afternoon, and thanks for having me on. But no, you're not wrong. We are seeing that there are more cases like this where, unfortunately, there seems to be a backlog of a number of students that don't have, for whatever reason, their English eligibility documents, and unfortunately, because of Bill 101. We are not allowed to accept anybody into our schools unless we get that pre-authorization from the ministry. It seems that, obviously the complaints come to the school board. So, we investigate, we inquire, because we weren't sure what the holdup was on our end either. We just assumed must have been something going on at the Ministry of Education. But, it turns out that actually Bill 96 has had an effect on temporary stays, new students, because Bill 96 put in these extra hurdles, and according to what I was able to ascertain, their computers and their IT technology wasn't adapted to dealing with some of these issues, and it's created this backlog, and that's certainly one of the reasons. And so obviously it's taken a few days for people to be ready and adapt to that, which is unfortunate because this bill was passed. Warnings were given that it wasn't a good idea. People aren't consulted. Even, ministry bureaucrats are not consulted about the potential negative impacts, and we're seeing that now.
Well, hold on a second. I want to make sure I understand this. Are you telling me that the government's own IT and computer systems were not ready to deal with this because of Bill 96?
That is one of the issues that I was told was a major problem for new kids who are here who are trying to seek temporary stays, and unfortunately, Bill 96 created a new criteria that people that were automatically exempted in Bill 101 are now not so anymore. And so I guess it created an issue in processing. I'm not sure exactly how it works there, but in processing this paperwork, there were other issues and other glitches as well along the way. But that was one of them. Yeah.
So, Joe, we've read that the English Montreal School Board has about 300 files right now pending, right? So that's 300 students affected by this just at your school board. What does that mean? Does that mean that those kids are not going to school for the moment? Does it mean that these 300 kids are attending French school, or what's happening with them?
I'm not sure. It's probably a little bit of both. If some parents, and I can certainly understand, if they don't know how long it's going to be, if they're told it's going to be a couple of days, I can understand maybe the kids are staying at home. But if it's going to be a question of weeks, probably parents are, putting their kids in French school, the time it takes to get all of this together. The issue here is that, we don't even have any discretion whatsoever to say, look, it seems that things, people have their paperwork in order, whether it's, as applying for English eligibility at the ministry, whether it's, this new office that Bill 96, this new French language office that Bill 96 created, whether it's parents who are coming here under temporary work permits who are seeking exemptions and waiting for documents maybe from Immigration Canada, whatever the situation is, if these people shouldn't be punished if they have their stuff in order because the government or any government department, federal or provincial, is backlogged or anything like that. But we don't even have the discretion to say, look, these people have their stuff together. Temporarily we'll just take them in, and the time it takes for the stuff to be processed, and then we know everything will be fine. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in Quebec, and unless we get the okay, we're not allowed to take anybody.
All right. Well, then the obvious question is, do you have any indication from the government as to how long this might take to clear up this, whatever you want to call it, backlog? Is it weeks? Is it days? Anything?
From what I was able to ascertain, and of course we've been inquiring, and there have been lots of discussions going on between the school board and the ministry, it seems that for those who are seeking for temporary stays, the ministry's been working really hard to get all of that stuff together. That should be settled in a matter of a couple of days. The issue is, from what I'm understanding now, it seems that what's taking a little bit longer is those who are coming from international students, and they aren't getting their documents. I'm being told that there's maybe an issue with Immigration Canada, and we don't know how long that's going to be. And we are worried about that because, if it is going to take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, there's no guarantee if those children wind up in a French school, there's no guarantee that once they get the English eligibility that, they're going to pull those children out and put them in the English school.
Yeah, once they've settled in, right? And then I wonder right away, Joe, too, about funding. Isn't this going to potentially affect schools' funding because the attestation day is at the end of this month, right? It's the 30th, I think. At least that's
correct.
At my daughter's school. And that's where you have your students, you know how many students you have, and that affects how much money you get to function.
You're exactly right. The official enrollment numbers for all the schools across Quebec, that day is September 30th, and the funding that we get is based on enrollment in all of our schools. So the funding we get as a school board is going to be affected if these kids, in September still don't have their English eligibility and they're not going to be able to come in. I find it really unfortunate. I wish that there was something that we could do on our end because we obviously don't want to refuse anybody. We're not in a position where we have the luxury to refuse students anyway. We want to take students. We have space in our schools. It's really unfortunate though because the law is such that we can't take anybody unless the ministry authorizes it.
So then what happens after the 30th if this hasn't been fixed by then and you don't have the funding for those kids? Do you let them in but you don't have the funding, or how's that going to work, Joe?
Well, as I said, we don't refuse students. We would take in the students, but they won't be counted when the government does their calculations in terms of what the funding is going to be.
Mess.
So it creates an issue. It puts us at yet another disadvantage as a minority language school board in Quebec, and it's unfortunate. We wish we could take these kids as of the first day of school, but there are these issues, and we can. I wish we had the discretion to make temporary exemptions ourselves. We'd be happy to welcome these kids. There were issues, in the news in the last couple of days of other children. Luckily, some of them did get the English eligibility. They're starting school at the end of this week. Unfortunately, not everybody's in that situation.
Joe, I'm not going to try to come up with a conspiracy theory here. You don't suppose any of this is payback, do you?
I don't want to make that kind of a claim without any evidence, obviously. What I'm being told, and I'm being told by people at the school board, who are working hand in hand with the Ministry of Education to resolve this issue, is that they are, at least at the administrative level, they are being very cooperative. They're working with us. They're working extra time in order to get this done. So no, I don't think that that's it. But it is unfortunate because even though it isn't deliberate, we are suffering as a result of it.
All right. Joe ORTONA, English Montreal School Board, on those English eligibility certificates, and kids still waiting, sitting at home, can't go to school until they get them. Joe, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.